The auction block stood in the blazing June heat of San Angelo, Texas, in 1877, and Lily Matthews knew she would either be sold into another kind of hell, or she would die trying to escape whatever came next. Her fingers trembled against the rough wooden planks beneath her bare feet, the splinters digging into skin already raw from weeks of walking. The rags she wore barely covered her body, torn and filthy from the journey that had brought her here. She had stopped speaking 3 weeks ago, after watching her father die on the trail from fever, after her stepmother sold her to pay off gambling debts to a man who dealt in human misery. Silence had become her only protection, her last defense against a world that had stripped everything else away. The crowd gathered in the dusty town square, men mostly, their faces shadowed by wide-brimmed hats, their eyes assessing her like livestock. She kept her gaze on the horizon, on the endless Texas sky that promised freedom she would never taste. The auctioneer, a fat man with tobacco-stained teeth, grabbed her arm and yanked her forward. "What am I bid for this one?" he called out, his voice carrying across the square. "She is young, strong enough for work, quiet too, which some of you might appreciate in a woman." Laughter rippled through the crowd, cruel and casual. Lily felt something inside her go cold and distant, as if her soul had already begun to separate from her body. She had learned this trick in recent weeks, this ability to float above her own suffering. $5, someone called out. "7, another voice added lazily. The bids came slowly, without enthusiasm. She was too thin, too dirty, too broken-looking to inspire much interest. The auctioneer's grip on her arm tightened with frustration. That was when she saw him. He stood at the edge of the crowd, a tall man with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of storm clouds. Unlike the others, he was not looking at her with calculation or cruel amusement. He was looking at her with something that might have been recognition, though they had never met. His jaw was set hard, his hands clenched at his sides. $10, the highest bid so far, came from a rancher she recognized from earlier auctions. She had seen him buy 2 other women this week. Neither had looked happy about it. The tall cowboy at the edge of the crowd suddenly moved forward, pushing through the gathered men with a determination that made people step aside. "I want to see the papers," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. The auctioneer frowned. "What papers?" "The papers that say you have the right to sell a human being in the state of Texas in 1877, the cowboy said. His accent carried the slight drawl of someone raised in these parts, but his words were educated, precise. The auctioneer's face flushed red. "This is a debt sale, perfectly legal." Her stepmother signed the contract. "A contract selling a person is not legal, no matter what you call it," the cowboy said. He was close enough now that Lily could see the scar along his jawline, the dust on his boots, the worn leather of his gun belt. "But I suspect you know that, and you are counting on nobody here caring enough to challenge you." The crowd had gone quiet, tension crackling through the air like lightning before a storm. The auctioneer sneered. "You want to challenge me, boy? You wearing a badge?" "No badge," the cowboy said. "But I have got something better. I have got every cent I own, and I am bidding it all." He pulled a leather pouch from his pocket and dumped its contents onto the auction block. Gold coins scattered and rolled, catching the sunlight. Lily heard gasps from the crowd. $342, the cowboy said. "That is everything. My savings from 5 years of breaking horses and riding trail. You want to pretend this is legal? Fine. Then sell her to me." The auctioneer stared at the money, his eyes wide with greed and confusion. $300 was more than most men in San Angelo saw in a year. That is an unusual amount for a human life, the cowboy finished. "Yes, it is. because you cannot actually put a price on one, can you? So I am offering everything I have. Now take it or tell all these people that this is not actually a legal sale and you are just a criminal who should be run out of town." The silence stretched out. Lily found herself holding her breath, not daring to hope, not daring to believe that this stranger would actually do this. That anyone would. The auctioneer snatched up the coins with both hands, his decision made by pure avarice. "Sold," he spat. "She is yours, and good riddance to both of you." The cowboy climbed onto the platform, and for the first time he looked directly at Lily. Up close, she could see that he was younger than she had first thought, maybe 25 or 26. His eyes were kind despite their intensity. "My name is Thomas Anderson," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "I am going to take you away from here now. I am not going to hurt you. You do not have to be afraid of me." Lily wanted to speak, wanted to ask why he had done this, but her voice was still locked somewhere deep inside where she could not reach it. Instead, she just nodded once. Thomas removed his dusty coat and draped it around her shoulders, covering the rags, giving her back some dignity. Then he offered his arm, as if she were a lady descending from a carriage rather than a girl being sold on an auction block. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. They walked through the crowd together and the men parted before them. Lily kept her eyes forward, kept her chin up, kept her hand on Thomas Anderson's arm. She could feel the steadiness of him, the controlled strength. His horse was tied to a post near the general store, a beautiful Palomino mare with intelligent eyes. Thomas helped Lily up into the saddle first, then mounted behind her. She stiffened at the proximity, but his voice remained calm. "It is a 20-minute ride to my place," he said. "Just hold on." They rode out of San Angelo, with the afternoon sun beating down on them, leaving behind the auction block and the cruel laughter and everything that had brought Lily to this moment. She watched the town recede behind them and felt something flutter in her chest that might have been the beginning of hope, though she was afraid to name it. Thomas's ranch sat in a valley between low hills, a modest spread with a small house, a barn, and a corral where several horses grazed. It was not grand, but it was clearly cared for. The fence posts were straight, the barn doors hung properly, and there were flowers growing near the house, wildflowers that someone had transplanted and watered. Thomas dismounted first, then helped Lily down. Her legs nearly buckled after the ride, and he steadied her with a gentle hand on her elbow. "Come inside," he said. "You must be hungry." The house was simple but clean, one main room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen area, and a door that led to what she assumed was a bedroom. There was a table with 2 chairs, shelves lined with books, and windows that let in the golden afternoon light. Thomas pulled out one of the chairs for her. "Sit down, please." Lily sat, pulling his coat tighter around herself. She watched as he moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, building up the fire, filling a kettle with water, slicing bread and cheese. His movements were calm, unhurried, as if having a traumatized girl in his house was something he dealt with every day. He set the food in front of her along with a cup of water. "Eat as much as you want. There is plenty more." Lily stared at the food, her stomach cramping with hunger but her throat tight with emotion. Her hands shook as she reached for the bread. Thomas sat down across from her, but he did not eat. He just watched her with those steady gray eyes. "I know you are not speaking right now," he said. "And that is all right. You do not owe me any words or any explanations, but I want to tell you some things so you understand your situation here." Lily paused in her eating, meeting his gaze. "I bought you today because it was the only way I could think of to get you away from that man and that situation," Thomas said. "But I do not believe one person can own another. So as far as I am concerned, you are free." You can stay here as long as you need to, or you can leave whenever you want. I will not stop you either way." Lily's eyes widened. She searched his face for the trick, for the cruelty she had learned to expect. "I live alone out here," Thomas continued. "My parents died when I was 19, left me this land. I make enough to get by breaking and training horses. The work is hard but honest. If you want to stay, you do not owe me anything. Not labor, not anything else. I have a spare room you can use. I will not bother you. And when you are ready, if you want to go somewhere else, I will help you get there." He stood up and walked to a small chest against the wall. When he returned, he held a folded dress, simple blue cotton but clean and whole. "This was my mother's," he said. "She was about your size. You are welcome to it, and to anything else you need." Lily took the dress with trembling hands, clutching it to her chest. She felt something break inside her, some wall she had built up crumbling all at once. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them, silent sobs shaking her shoulders. Thomas looked pained. "I am sorry. I did not mean to make you cry." But Lily shook her head fiercely. These were not tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of relief so profound it hurt. Tears for the kindness of a stranger who had given everything he had to save someone he did not even know. That night, Lily slept in a real bed for the first time in weeks, clean and fed and safe. She woke several times, startled and confused, expecting to find herself back on the hard ground or the wagon that had carried her to San Angelo. But each time, she saw the moonlight streaming through the window of the small bedroom, heard the gentle sounds of the night, and slowly relaxed again. In the morning, she found Thomas already up, working in the corral with a young Mustang. She watched from the window as he moved around the nervous horse with infinite patience, his voice low and soothing. The horse had clearly been wild recently, still skittish and uncertain, but Thomas never forced anything. He just waited, offered his hand, stepped back when the horse needed space. Lily understood that she was watching something important, a lesson being taught in silence. She spent the first week mostly in silence, slowly recovering her strength. Thomas kept his word about everything. He made meals and left her to eat at her own pace. He worked outside during the day, giving her space. In the evenings, he sat by the fire and read, sometimes aloud, not to her specifically but just filling the silence with stories. She found herself drawn to these evening readings, sitting closer each night to hear better. One evening, 8 days after he had brought her home, Thomas was reading from a book of poetry when Lily suddenly spoke. "Why?" Her voice came out as barely a whisper, rough from disuse, but Thomas heard it. He looked up from his book, his expression carefully neutral, though she caught the flicker of emotion in his eyes. "Why did I bring you here?" he asked gently. Lily nodded, her throat working. "Why did you give everything?" Thomas set the book aside and looked into the fire for a long moment before answering. "My mother was Cherokee," he said finally. "My father was white, a rancher who fell in love with a woman he met while trading horses. They married despite everyone telling them it was wrong, that they should not mix. They built this place together, made a life here. They were happy." He paused, his jaw tightening. "When I was 17, some men came through. They did not like that my father had married an Indian woman. They did not like that I existed. They burned our fields and would have done worse, but my father and mother fought them off. 2 years later, both my parents died in a fever epidemic. I survived." Thomas looked at Lily then, his eyes holding a pain she recognized. "I know what it is like to be seen as less than human," he said. "To have people look at you like you are something to be used or discarded. When I saw you on that auction block, I saw someone who needed help, and I had the means to give it. That is all. I could not walk away and live with myself." Lily felt tears sting her eyes again. $300, she whispered. That was everything. Money comes back, Thomas said simply. I am good with horses, I will earn more, but if I had walked away from you, I could never have earned back my own humanity. Silence fell between them, but it was different now, comfortable. Honest. Thank you, Lily said, her voice stronger. I have not said it yet, but thank you for saving me, for giving me a place to heal. You do not have to thank me, Thomas said. Just get better. That is all I want. As the weeks passed, Lily grew stronger. Her voice came back fully, and with it, pieces of her story. She told Thomas about her life before, about her father who had been a good man despite his gambling problem, about her mother who had died when Lily was 12. She told him about her stepmother who had seen her as a burden, about the debt collector who had taken her as payment. Thomas listened to all of it without judgment, without pity. He just listened, and that meant more to Lily than any words could have. In return, she began to help around the ranch. Not because she owed him, but because she wanted to. She cooked meals while he worked with the horses. She mended his worn shirts and planted a vegetable garden behind the house. She found herself laughing one day while trying to catch a chicken that had escaped its pen, and the sound startled her. She had not laughed in so long. Thomas came running from the barn at the sound, concern on his face, but stopped when he saw her grinning, muddy and disheveled with feathers in her hair. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I am fine," Lily said, still laughing. "The chicken won." And then Thomas smiled too. A real smile that transformed his entire face, and Lily felt her heart do something strange in her chest. It was in the small moments that Lily began to fall in love with Thomas Anderson. Not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in the way he made his coffee in the morning, strong and dark. In the way he talked to his horses, with respect and affection. In the way he never tried to touch her without permission, always conscious of her space and her healing. She fell in love with the way he read poetry by firelight, his voice turning the words into music. With the way he fixed the fence gate 3 times because it still was not quite right. With the way he looked at the stars at night, as if they held answers to questions he had not yet learned to ask. She did not tell him, though. Not yet. The wound of what had happened to her was still too fresh, and she needed to know that what she felt was real, not just gratitude or dependence. Summer turned toward autumn. The heat began to ease, and the wildflowers near the house bloomed in riot of colors. Lily had been at the ranch for 3 months, and she could hardly remember the silent, terrified girl who had stood on the auction block. That girl felt like someone else entirely. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold, Thomas spoke quietly. "There is a wagon train leaving from San Angelo next week," he said. "Heading to California. If you wanted, I could arrange passage for you. Give you a fresh start somewhere new, somewhere no one knows you." Lily's chest tightened. "Is that what you want? For me to leave?" "No," Thomas said, and there was something raw in his voice. "No, that is not what I want at all, but I told you that you were free and I meant it. If you want to leave to start over somewhere else, I will not stand in your way." "What if I do not want to leave?" Lily asked, her heart pounding. Thomas turned to look at her, his gray eyes searching her face. "Then I would be glad, happier than I have any right to be. Because these past 3 months, having you here, they have been the best months of my life. But I do not want you to stay out of obligation or because you think you owe me. I want you to stay because you want to." Lily reached out and took his hand, the first time she had initiated touch with him. His skin was warm and calloused from work, and his fingers curled gently around hers. "I want to stay," she said clearly. "Not because I owe you, not because I have nowhere else to go. I want to stay because when I think about leaving, about not seeing you every day, about not being here with you, It feels like losing something precious. Something I did not know I could have again. Thomas's breath caught. Lily. I love you, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I did not plan to, and I do not know if it is too soon or if I have any right to feel this way, but I do. I love you, Thomas Anderson. I love your kindness and your strength and the way you see people as people, not as things. I love the way you read poetry and work with horses and how you gave up everything you had for a stranger. I love you, and I want to stay. For a moment, Thomas just stared at her, his eyes shining with emotion. Then he brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. I love you too, he said, his voice thick. I have loved you since the moment you took my arm and walked through that crowd with your head held high. I have loved you every day since, watching you heal, watching you become yourself again. But I did not want to say anything. I did not want you to feel pressured or confused. I am not confused, Lily said, smiling through tears. For the first time in my life, I am absolutely certain. Thomas cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle, his eyes asking permission. Lily leaned into him, closing the distance between them, and when their lips met, it felt like coming home. The kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise, and when they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling. Marry me, Thomas said. I know it is soon. I know you might need more time, but I want you to know that I am asking. Not because of propriety or because I think I own you, but because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. Because you are the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I want to make it official before the whole world. Lily laughed, joy bubbling up inside her like a spring. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you. 1,000 times yes. They were married in October in the small church in San Angelo. It was a modest ceremony, attended by a few of the ranchers Thomas did business with, and some of the townspeople who remembered the auction and respected what Thomas had done. Lily wore a dress she had sewn herself from fabric Thomas had bought, pale yellow like sunshine. Thomas wore his best shirt and a nervous smile. The preacher, an old man with kind eyes, pronounced them husband and wife, and when Thomas kissed his bride, the small gathering applauded. As they walked back down the aisle together, Lily looked out at the faces watching them, and she thought about how different this moment was from the last time she had stood in San Angelo. Then, she had been silent and alone and terrified. Now, she was someone's wife, someone's love, and she had found her voice again. The first year of their marriage was filled with hard work and quiet happiness. Thomas continued training horses, building a reputation as one of the best horse breakers in West Texas. Lily kept the house and the garden and began raising chickens and a few goats. They worked together, ate together, slept wrapped in each other's arms. There were hard days, too. Lily sometimes woke from nightmares, reliving the journey that had brought her to the auction block. Thomas held her through those nights, whispering reassurances until she calmed. And Thomas had his own demons, memories of his parents' deaths and the cruelty they had faced. Lily learned to recognize the shadows in his eyes, and she would take his hand and remind him that they were safe, they were together. In the spring of 1878, Lily discovered she was pregnant. She told Thomas one evening while they were sitting on the porch, watching the stars emerge. I saw the doctor in town today, she said, trying to keep her voice casual despite the butterflies in her stomach. Thomas looked at her with concern. Are you ill? No, Lily said, breaking into a smile. Not ill, pregnant. We are going to have a baby. For a moment, Thomas just stared at her, his mouth opening and closing. Then he let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around before carefully setting her back down. A baby, he said, wonder in his voice. We are going to have a baby. Lily, this is. I cannot even." "I know," she said, laughing at his incoherence. "I know." Thomas dropped to his knees and pressed his ear to her still flat stomach. "Hello in there," he said softly. "This is your father. I am going to do everything I can to give you a good life, to keep you safe and loved. Just like I do for your mother." Lily ran her fingers through his dark hair, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Their son was born in January of 1879, during a cold snap that frosted the windows and made the fire in the hearth burn extra bright. The birth was long and difficult, attended by a midwife from town and Thomas, who refused to leave Lily's side despite tradition. When the baby finally emerged, wailing and red-faced, Thomas cut the cord with shaking hands and placed the baby on Lily's chest. "A boy," the midwife announced. "Healthy and strong." Lily looked down at her son, this tiny perfect being, and felt a love so fierce it was almost frightening. Thomas knelt beside the bed, his finger stroking the baby's downy head. "What should we name him?" he asked. "James," Lily said. "After my father." "James Michael Anderson." "James," Thomas repeated, testing the name. "Welcome to the world, James. We have been waiting for you." The next few years passed in a blur of sleepless nights and joyful firsts. James's first smile, his first word, his first steps. Thomas proved to be a devoted father, patient and playful. He built toys for James, read him stories, carried him around the ranch on his shoulders. Lily watched her husband and son together and marveled at the life they had built. In 1881, their daughter was born, a tiny thing with Lily's dark hair and Thomas's gray eyes. They named her Sarah Marie, and she completed their family in a way Lily had not known was missing. James, now 2 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister, always wanting to help take care of her. The ranch prospered. Thomas's reputation grew and he was able to buy more land, expand the herd of horses. Lily started keeping bees and selling honey in town, her enterprise adding to their income. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable and, more importantly, they were happy. One evening in the summer of 1882, after the children were asleep, Lily and Thomas sat on the porch as they had so many times before. 5 years had passed since the day Thomas had bid everything he had to save her from the auction block. "You ever regret it?" Lily asked, leaning against his shoulder. "Spending all your savings on me that day?" Thomas was quiet for a moment, his arm around her waist. "No," he said finally. "Not for a single second. That money would have sat in a bank or been spent on things that did not matter. Instead, I traded it for you, for this life. For James and Sarah and everything we have built together. It was the best investment I ever made." Lily turned to kiss him, soft and sweet. "I love you, Thomas Anderson." "I love you too, Lily Anderson, more than words can say." As the years continued to pass, their love only deepened. They weathered droughts and harsh winters, celebrated good harvests and successful horse sales. They watched their children grow, teaching them to read and ride, to be kind and strong. James grew into a serious boy who loved books as much as horses, often reading while sitting in the corral with the Mustangs. Sarah was more adventurous, climbing trees and catching frogs, her laughter ringing across the ranch. In 1885, Lily's stepmother appeared at their door unannounced. She was older, harder looking, and there was desperation in her eyes. "Lily," she said, "I need help. I have nowhere else to turn." Lily stood in the doorway, Thomas beside her, and looked at the woman who had sold her to a debt collector 8 years ago. She felt Thomas tense, ready to send the woman away, but Lily held up a hand. "Why should I help you?" Lily asked, her voice calm. "You sold me. You took money to have me dragged away like property." The stepmother flinched. I know what I did was unforgivable. I was desperate and selfish and cruel. I have lived with the guilt every day since. I am not asking for forgiveness. I have nowhere to go. The man I was with, he left me with nothing. I have been sleeping in alleys." Lily studied her stepmother's face, seeing the truth of her suffering there. She thought about the girl she had been on the auction block, silent and terrified. She thought about the woman she had become, loved and safe and strong. "You can stay in the barn for tonight," Lily said finally. "Tomorrow we will give you enough money for a train ticket to wherever you want to go and some extra to get you started. But that is all. You are not welcome in my home and you will never meet my children. Do you understand?" The stepmother nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you, Lily." That night, after they had settled the woman in the barn with a blanket and some food, Thomas held Lily close. "You are more generous than I would have been," he said. "I am not being generous," Lily said. "I am being free." If I had turned her away completely, I would have been letting what she did to me control who I am now. By helping her just enough to get her somewhere else, I am choosing mercy on my terms. And then she is gone from my life forever. Thomas kissed the top of her head. "You are the strongest person I know." "I learned from you," Lily said. "You taught me that we always have a choice in how we treat people, even people who have hurt us." True to her word, the next morning they gave Lily's stepmother money for a ticket to St. Louis, where she claimed to have a cousin plus a little extra. They watched her leave on the morning stage, and Lily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. That chapter of her life was finally, truly closed. In 1888, at the age of 30, Thomas bought the land adjacent to their ranch, doubling their property. James, now 9, was old enough to help with the horses, showing a natural talent for gentling them. Sarah, at 7, preferred helping her mother with the garden and the bees, though she also loved riding and could stay on even the most spirited horses. One day, while Thomas and James were working with a particularly difficult Mustang, Lily watched from the fence with Sarah beside her. The stallion was fighting hard, unused to human contact, but Thomas never lost patience. He just waited, offering kindness and consistency until finally, slowly, the horse began to respond. "Papa is really good with the horses," Sarah observed. "He is," Lily agreed. "Your father understands that some things cannot be forced, that gentleness and patience are stronger than any rope or bit." "Is that how he got you to marry him?" Sarah asked with the innocent directness of a child. Lily laughed. "In a way, yes. Your father saved me when I needed saving, and then he gave me space to heal. He never demanded anything from me. He just loved me and waited for me to love him back." "That is a good way to do things," Sarah said thoughtfully. "It is the best way," Lily agreed. In 1890, when James was 12 and Sarah was 10, a cholera outbreak hit San Angelo. Thomas and Lily kept the children close to the ranch, avoiding town until the danger passed. They were fortunate. Their family remained healthy. But many others were not so lucky, and when the epidemic finally ended, Thomas and Lily helped organize relief efforts, providing food and supplies to families who had lost breadwinners. It was during this time that Lily truly realized how much their community had come to respect them. People who had once sneered at Thomas for his mixed heritage now came to him for help and advice. The town that had once hosted an auction block where human beings were sold now stood firmly against such practices, in part because of the example Thomas and Lily had set. "We have changed things here," Thomas said one night, looking over the donation ledgers. "Not everything, not enough, but something." "We have shown people that there is another way," Lily said. "That kindness and respect matter, that is all we can do." The children grew into young adults. James went to study veterinary medicine in Dallas for 2 years, then returned to the ranch with new knowledge about horse care that helped their business thrive even more. Sarah, to everyone's surprise, turned out to have a gift for business, taking over the financial management of the ranch and expanding their sales network across Texas. In 1895, James fell in love with a teacher who had moved to San Angelo from the east. Her name was Catherine, and she was smart and kind and perfect for him. They married in the same church where Thomas and Lily had wed, and Lily cried happy tears watching her son promise his life to someone he loved. 2 years later, Sarah announced that she was in love with a young rancher from a neighboring property. His name was Daniel, and he treated Sarah with the respect and partnership she demanded. Thomas grilled the young man thoroughly before giving his blessing, but in the end, he could see that Daniel truly loved his daughter. By 1899, Thomas and Lily were grandparents 3 times over. James and Catherine had 2 daughters, and Sarah and Daniel had a son. The ranch house had been expanded to accommodate family gatherings, and Sunday dinners were loud, chaotic affairs full of laughter and love. One evening, as the sun set over the hills and the grandchildren played in the yard, Thomas and Lily sat on their porch, now weathered by 22 years of use. Thomas's hair was touched with gray at the temples, and Lily had fine lines around her eyes from years of smiling in the Texas sun. "Do you remember the first night we sat here together?" Thomas asked, his hand finding hers as naturally as breathing. "I remember," Lily said. "You told me I was free, that I could stay or go." "I was terrified you would choose to go," Thomas admitted. "I was terrified too," Lily said. "Terrified to hope that what you were offering was real, that I could actually have a life again, a future." Thomas brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles as he had done so many times over the years. "You have given me the best life I could have imagined. You and the children and everything we have built together. Sometimes I still cannot believe it is real." "It is real," Lily said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "We made it real. You gave up everything you had to save me, and I gave you my heart, and from that we built all of this." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from orange to purple to deep blue. Inside the house, they could hear Sarah laughing at something Daniel said, James's voice reading a story to one of his daughters, the sounds of their family, their legacy. As the first stars appeared in the vast Texas sky, Lily thought about the journey that had brought her here, the suffering and fear that had led to the auction block in San Angelo, the silence she had wrapped around herself like armor. The moment Thomas Anderson had stepped forward and offered everything he had, she thought about all the choices that had led to this moment, this life. And she was grateful for every single one, even the painful ones, because they had brought her here to this porch, to this man, to this love that had sustained them through everything. "I would do it all again," she said softly. "Every hard moment, every fear, every tear. I would do it all again to end up here with you." Thomas pulled her closer, his lips brushing her temple. "I would bid everything I had 1,000 times over. You were worth it then, and you are worth it now. You will always be worth everything." And as the stars wheeled overhead and their family's laughter drifted out from the warm house, Lily Matthews Anderson knew that she was not just surviving anymore. She was living, truly living, surrounded by love and joy and the profound contentment that came from building a life with someone who saw her, truly saw her, and chose her every single day. The years continued to be kind to them. In 1902, Thomas and Lily celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary with a party that brought together friends and family from across the region. The ranch was decorated with lanterns and wildflowers, and there was music and dancing late into the night. As Thomas led Lily in a slow waltz under the stars, she looked up at him and saw the same love in his eyes that had been there on their wedding day, only deeper now, richer, strengthened by decades of partnership and devotion. Their grandchildren multiplied. By 1905, there were 7 grandchildren in total, ranging from toddlers to teenagers. The ranch had become a true family enterprise, with James managing the horse breeding operation, Sarah handling the business side, and Daniel overseeing the cattle they had added to diversify their income. Thomas, now in his 50s, had slowed down a bit but still worked with the horses he loved, though he left the more difficult ones to James. Lily had become a respected figure in San Angelo, known for her charity work and her honey that won prizes at the county fair every year. She also quietly helped other women who found themselves in difficult situations, offering jobs on the ranch or connecting them with resources in town. She never spoke publicly about her own past, but those who knew. And they loved her all the more for how she had transformed her suffering into service. In 1908, Thomas fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. For 2 weeks, Lily barely left his side, nursing him with the same fierce devotion he had shown her 31 years earlier when he had given her a place to heal. The children took turns sitting with their father, and the grandchildren drew pictures to cheer him up. Slowly, painfully, Thomas recovered, though the illness left him weaker than before. "I am not ready to leave you yet," he told Lily one night as he recovered, his voice still raspy. "We have more years ahead of us. I am sure of it." "You better be sure," Lily said, trying to keep her voice light despite the tears in her eyes, "because I have no intention of doing this life without you, so you need to get stronger." Thomas squeezed her hand. "Yes, madam." He did get stronger, though he moved a bit slower after that, tired more easily. But his mind was as sharp as ever, and his love for his family never wavered. He taught his grandsons about horses and his granddaughters about treating all people with respect. He read them poetry and told them stories about their grandmother's courage and strength. In 1910, San Angelo held a ceremony to honor its founding citizens and those who had helped shape the town into what it had become. Thomas and Lily were among those honored, recognized for their contributions to the community over more than 3 decades. As they stood together on the platform, Lily could not help but remember standing on a different platform in this same town, being sold like property. The contrast was almost overwhelming. The mayor, a young man who had not even been born in 1877, spoke of Thomas's integrity and Lily's compassion. He spoke of how they had built not just a successful ranch, but a family legacy that embodied the best values of Texas. When it was Thomas's turn to speak, he simply said, "My wife and I believe in second chances. We believe in the power of kindness to change lives, and we believe that every person, no matter where they come from or what has happened to them, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. If we have contributed anything to this town, I hope it is that belief." The crowd applauded, and Lily felt Thomas's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining as they had so many times before. Life continued its steady rhythm. Seasons passed, marked by births and birthdays, by harvests and holidays. Thomas and Lily grew older together, their bodies slower but their love undimmed. They still sat on their porch most evenings, watching the sunset and talking about everything and nothing. In 1915, they celebrated their 38th wedding anniversary quietly, just the 2 of them. The children wanted to throw a party, but Thomas and Lily preferred a simple dinner at home, just as they had done so many times before. 38 years, Thomas said, raising his glass of wine to toast his wife. "And I love you more today than I did when we married. I did not think that was possible, but here we are." "Here we are," Lily echoed, touching her glass to his. "Still together, still us." "Always us," Thomas agreed. That winter was mild, and Thomas seemed to improve with the warmer weather that followed. He spent his days working with a young mare that James had acquired, patient and gentle as always. Lily watched him from the kitchen window, mixing bread dough, and felt a deep contentment. This was her life. This man, this ranch, this family. Everything she had never dared to hope for after that terrible day on the auction block. In the spring of 1916, as wildflowers bloomed across the Texas hills and the air smelled of possibility, Thomas and Lily Anderson celebrated Thomas's 64th birthday. The house was full of children and grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren, the newest generation of their family legacy. There was cake and music and laughter, and when everyone had finally left and the house was quiet again, Thomas and Lily stood on their porch, watching the stars emerge. "This is what I bid for," Thomas said softly. "Not just saving you that day, though that is how it started, but this life, this love, this family, everything." Lily leaned into him, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. "You got a good return on your investment." Thomas laughed, the sound warm and rich. "The best return. $342 for a lifetime of joy. I should have been a businessman." "You are exactly what you should be," Lily said, tilting her face up to look at him. The moonlight caught the silver in his hair, the lines on his face, and she thought he had never been more handsome. "You are a good man who saved a woman in rags and silence and loved her until she found her voice again. You are my husband and the father of my children and the love of my life. That is all you need to be." Thomas kissed her then, soft and sweet, and when they finally pulled apart they were both smiling. "Let us go to bed," he said. "We have another day ahead of us tomorrow, and I intend to spend every moment of it loving you." "That sounds perfect," Lily said. They walked into their home together, hand in hand, as they had done for 39 years. The house was quiet now, filled with the echoes of the day's laughter but peaceful in the evening calm. In their bedroom they helped each other undress with the comfortable intimacy of decades, and when they lay down together, Lily curled into Thomas's side as naturally as breathing. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Thomas whispered back. "Always and forever." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two souls who had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances and built a life that neither had thought possible. The years that followed continued to bless them. They watched their grandchildren grow up and start families of their own. The ranch prospered under the next generation's management. And through it all, Thomas and Lily remained the heart of the family, the foundation on which everything else was built. On their 50th wedding anniversary in 1927, the family threw a celebration that brought together over 100 people, spanning 4 generations. There were speeches and toasts, and James stood up to talk about his parents' love story, about how his father had given everything he had to save his mother, and how that single act of courage and compassion had created a legacy that would last for generations. "My parents taught us that love is not just a feeling," James said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "It is a choice you make every single day. It is sacrifice and service and seeing someone else's worth even when the world says they have none. Their love story is not just about romance. It is about humanity and dignity and the belief that every person deserves a chance at happiness." The crowd applauded, and Thomas and Lily stood together, holding hands, their eyes bright with tears. At 75 and 70, respectively, they had lived full lives, rich with love and purpose. And they were not done yet. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Thomas and Lily found themselves back on their porch, the same porch where they had sat so many times over the decades. The wood was worn smooth by years of use, and the view had not changed much. the same Texas hills rolling away toward the horizon. 50 years, Lily said wonderingly. How did we get here so fast? One day at a time, Thomas said. One choice at a time. Every morning I woke up and chose you. And every day you chose me back. That is how we got here. And I would make the same choice every time, Lily said firmly. You gave me my life back when you bid everything you had, and I gave you my heart. It was always a fair trade. More than fair, Thomas said. I got the better end of the deal by far. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set in brilliant oranges and pinks. The evening air was warm, carrying the scent of the wildflowers that still grew near the house, descendants of the ones Lily had planted 40 years ago. Do you remember when I could not speak? Lily asked suddenly. Those first weeks here when I was so broken I had no words left. I remember, Thomas said gently. I was so lost then, Lily continued. I thought I would never be whole again. But you gave me a safe place to heal, and slowly I found my voice. Not just my literal voice, but my real voice. The person I was meant to be. You were always that person, Thomas said. I just gave you the space to remember who you were. That is love, is it not? Lily mused. Not changing someone, but giving them room to become themselves. Yes, Thomas agreed. That is exactly what love is. As darkness fell and the first stars appeared, they stood and walked inside together. The house was quiet now, empty of guests but full of memories. 50 years of memories, layered like sediment, creating the foundation of their shared life. In bed that night, Lily lay with her head on Thomas's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. It was slower than it used to be, but still strong, still steady. Like the man himself. Thank you, she said softly. For what? Thomas asked, his hand stroking her hair. For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For valuing me when I had no value. For loving me when I could not love myself. For these 50 years, for this life. For everything. Thomas kissed the top of her head. Thank you for saying yes when I asked you to marry me. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for the children and the grandchildren and every single day we have had together. You are my greatest blessing, Lily Anderson. You always have been. They fell asleep like that, holding each other. Two people who had found love in the most unexpected place and nurtured it into something that would outlast them both. Their legacy was not just the ranch or the money or the business success. It was the family they had created, built on a foundation of love and respect, and the fundamental belief that every person has worth. The years continued to pass gently. Thomas and Lily grew frailer with age but remained sharp of mind and devoted to each other. They celebrated more anniversaries, more birthdays, more family gatherings. They held great-great-grandchildren and told stories about the old days. And always, they sat on their porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the Texas hills. In the summer of 1930, at the age of 78, Thomas passed away peacefully in his sleep, with Lily beside him as she had been for 53 years. His last words, whispered in the quiet of their bedroom, were, "I love you. I will find you again." The funeral brought together hundreds of people from across Texas. 3 generations of the Anderson family stood together, mourning the loss of the man who had started it all. Lily, now 73, stood straight and strong through the service, supported by her children and grandchildren. She did not cry during the funeral, saving her tears for the private moments. After everyone had left and the house was quiet, Lily sat on the porch alone for the first time in decades. The emptiness beside her was like a physical wound, and finally, the tears came. She cried for the loss of her partner, her love, her best friend. She cried for all the moments they would not share, all the sunsets they would not watch together. But even in her grief, she felt grateful. 53 years of marriage. More than half a century with a man who had loved her unconditionally, who had given her a life beyond her wildest dreams. How many people could say they had been so blessed? James came to check on her, finding her on the porch as the stars emerged. "Mama," he said gently, "come inside. You should rest." "In a minute," Lily said, her voice hoarse from crying. "I am just talking to your father. I think he can still hear me from here." James sat down beside his mother, taking her hand. "Tell me about the day you met him. Really met him, I mean." "I have heard the story, but tell me again." So Lily told him. She told him about standing on the auction block in rags and silence, broken and afraid. She told him about seeing Thomas at the edge of the crowd, about the way he had challenged the auctioneer, about how he had dumped every cent he owned onto that platform and demanded they sell her to him, about the ride to the ranch and the simple kindness he had shown her. "He saved my life," Lily said, "not just from that situation, but from losing myself entirely. He gave me back my humanity when I thought it was gone forever, and then he gave me 53 years of the best love I could have imagined." "He was a good man," James said, tears in his own eyes. "He was the best man," Lily corrected, "and we will honor him by continuing what he started. By treating people with dignity, by being kind even when it is difficult, by loving without reservation. That is his legacy." James nodded. "That is his legacy, and yours, Mama. You built this too." Lily lived for another 8 years after Thomas's death, surrounded by her family and sustained by the love she and Thomas had created. She remained active and engaged, still telling stories, still offering wisdom, still making her prize-winning honey. But everyone could see that a part of her had gone with Thomas, and she was just waiting until it was time to follow. In the spring of 1938, at the age of 81, Lily Anderson passed away peacefully in the bedroom she had shared with Thomas for more than half a century. Her children and grandchildren were with her, holding her hands and telling her how much she was loved. Her last words were a smile and a whisper. "I am coming, Thomas. Wait for me." She was buried next to Thomas on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. The headstone read, "Lily Matthews Anderson, 1857–1938, beloved wife, mother, grandmother. She found her voice and changed the world at the funeral." Sarah, now in her 50s and a grandmother herself, stood to speak about her mother. "My mother taught us that our past does not define our future," she said. "She showed us that even the darkest moments can lead to beautiful things if we have the courage to keep going. She was sold on an auction block in rags and silence, and my father bid everything he had to save her. From that single act of love, they built this family, this legacy, this proof that kindness and compassion can change the world." Sarah paused, looking out at the huge gathering of family members, 4 generations strong. "Look around you," she continued. "Every person here exists because a cowboy saw a woman in need and gave everything he had. Because that woman found her voice again and chose to love him back. Because 2 people decided that their love was worth building a life on. This is their legacy. We are their legacy. And we will carry it forward, generation after generation, never forgetting where we came from or the love that made it all possible." The crowd, over 200 strong, all descendants and friends of Thomas and Lily Anderson, bowed their heads in agreement. The story would be passed down, told and retold, a testament to the power of love and sacrifice, and seeing the humanity in every person. The ranch continued under the management of the Anderson family. James's sons took over the horse operation, and Sarah's daughters expanded the business side. Great-grandchildren grew up running through the same fields where Thomas and Lily had walked hand in hand. The house was expanded and modernized, but the porch remained, that sacred space where two people had fallen in love while watching Texas sunsets. And on summer evenings, when the sky turned orange and gold, family members would sometimes sit on that porch and tell the story. The story of a woman auctioned in rags and silence, and the cowboy who bid everything he had. The story of how love could transform suffering into joy, how a single act of courage could ripple through generations, how two broken people could find each other and build something beautiful. It was a story worth telling, a story worth remembering. A story of love in the Wild West, as fierce and enduring as the Texas landscape itself. And in the end, it was a story with the best possible ending. A love that lasted a lifetime, a family built on compassion and respect, and a legacy that would never be forgotten. Thomas and Lily Anderson had taken a moment of desperation and turned it into a testament to human goodness. They had shown that even in the hardest times, love could prevail. Their story lived on, passed from generation to generation, a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, and that true love is not just found but chosen, every single day, with courage and commitment and an unwavering belief in each other's worth. In San Angelo, Texas, where it all began, a small plaque was eventually placed in the town square, marking the spot where the auction block once stood. It reads simply, "On this site in 1877, Thomas Anderson bid everything he owned to save Lily Matthews from being sold." From that act of courage came a family, a legacy, and a reminder that human dignity is priceless. May we never forget, and they never did.